95% of our thought patterns are subconscious. So really, we're running on this program that we're not consciously there. Like we walk around the house, we drive to work, we take our bikes to work, we go through the motions of our day. And really, that's our subconscious mind running us. When you're a baby, actually, even before being born in this dimension, you actually the stress hormones from the mother during pregnancy cross the placenta halfway through pregnancy. So you start getting programmed not only from the womb, but from your ancestors, like Alexis was saying, and then also between ages all the way up to 7. Because when you're born in this dimension, you're born into a brain wave, a brain state called theta, and that is basically just programming your subconscious mind to help you and to hurt you throughout the rest of your life.
One of the most important things I learned actually from Elizabeth was that, we are not our thoughts. We are the observers of our thoughts. And being able to step back from your thoughts and realize and see yourself and see the coding that your body has been accepting, that your mind has been accepting, and being able to distinguish the separation between that and then control your destiny by consciously, actively changing the way that you're thinking because you separate yourself from your thoughts. I think that most people are just living in their normal thought programming code patterns without fully realizing that there's a higher self. So allowing yourself to tap into your higher self, so to speak, being born again in the spirit, so that you can look back down on yourself and see where your mind and everything is thinking on a lower 3-dimensional level. You're tapping into the multiverse or the multidimensional level, realizing that you really are truly a multidimensional being, and being able to realize your destiny is not set in stone. You have the capability of altering your course at any given time by making new conscious decisions.
To become separated from your subconscious pattern and subconscious programming, you first have to become aware that there's even programming there. So, I mean, triggers, for instance. I mean, everybody has triggers. Everybody gets a hit of, ooh, and then they feel it all through their body, and their body makes them want to respond to whatever stimulus has caused them to, boom, feel activated, right? So in those moments, I mean, you can really separate yourself from your physical body, realizing, okay, my heart's racing, my stomach feels tight, my hands are sweaty. I mean, this is all observing what your vessel is doing, so you can separate yourself from this physical world really and observe what's going on in it, right? And then you can consciously, and you're aware now that you can change your physical body and change your reaction to that certain stimulus, to that certain trigger. That's, kind of programming yourself to now separate yourself from subconscious, reprogram into being able to act how you want to respond instead of just reacting. You can always tap into your subconscious once you learn how to do so. Like I was talking about before, awareness that you even have a subconscious mind will kind of be able to, you can kind of start to tailor and create the life that you want to live. But the unconscious is extremely, extremely difficult to tap into. It's kind of like how, as adults, we all walk around. That's our way of moving from one point A to point B. That's part of the collective that we're all tailored to kind of the same oneness of this dimension. I mean, it's automatic. It's completely automatic though. I mean, could you imagine yourself crawling from point A to point B? That's not really in our DNA. That's not in the way that our bodies are supposed to move. So, I mean, it's a general process, but there is definitely a difference between subconscious, unconscious, and conscious minds.
And when you look into fractals, which we've talked about before, you begin to realize, okay, wow, if you look at it as fractals or as above, so below, you begin to realize like, wow, we are just a part, what we're doing here and how we're acting is a part of what's happening on a massive or a grand scale. Even on the subatomic scale, if you take us as the above and look subatomically, even like at the double slit experiment, where atoms make a conscious decision to be waves or to be solid matter, depending on observation, right? So if you could take the waves or the solid matter as unconscious and subconscious, you begin to see the similarities between the two and how the two are still coming from one source, which in the subatomic scale would be electrons orbiting a nucleus, but on this scale it's the conscious and subconscious, or unconscious and subconscious, orbiting this avatar body, so to speak. One is multidimensional, the other one is more linked or tagged into the three-dimensional realm. But it's interesting how both of them have an effect on every decision we make, but we have the capability of even superseding that and standing back and observing and being able to make conscious decisions and alter the course of our reality.
It's realizing, okay, I have this programming pattern. I have this way of things that might not necessarily be feeding my life into, a better place. So how do I reprogram that? How do I even see that I have these issues in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, really, that's digging into your own trauma. That's your shadow work. It's really, really finding out, where does the root of this thing start? Where does the problem begin? It's very interesting because my son and I both have the same thing, right? And we both have triggers surrounding food. So if someone messes up our food at a restaurant, or we bring home the wrong meal from picking up food somewhere, or just anything is wrong with any food of ours, we get so triggered. It's to the point where both of our bodies are overreacting. We're getting really, really upset about this. And it's like, where's the root of this? So it's kind of digging into yourself to really figure out and realize and know yourself better. So I realized, doing shadow work and regression work, that we had starvation in our family line, starting in our bloodline. Somewhere down the line, grandpa had some sort of famine, in Asia where I was born. So, I mean, it's really interesting to kind of figure out the root of these triggers, and that's doing the shadow work. That's where you can really start reprogramming your subconscious. So now whenever I get triggered in the moment of the food thing, right, I'm like, all right, let me start observing what's happening to my body. Number one, that's the first thing that I do as soon as I feel myself starting to react to a situation, is go into observe mode. Okay, my body, my heart's pounding. Okay, now I'm telling myself, hey, you're safe in this situation. This is not your trauma that's happening again. This is just a reaction to some sort of stimulus that is tailored back to a old bloodline thing. So it's realizing this is not my situation right now, separating yourself from that, observing what's happening, and catching your body, telling your body, hey, it's okay. You're not starving right now.
To add to that, in the question, you're also talking about us absorbing subliminal messages, right? So, getting in front of the TV, going into that brainwave state. I remember, when I took the MIT course on neuroscience, applied neuroscience, that is an aspect of neuroscience where it's not that we're learning brain surgery. We're learning how do you affect and imprint things onto the human consciousness on a massive scale. And so, just decades ago, not too long ago, subliminal messages during TV shows and movies were purely legal. They're now illegal, but I'm sure they still find a very smooth way to get those subliminal messages in, where they would actually literally flash within tenths of a second of Coca-Cola at a movie theater, with the bubbles coming on top. You wouldn't even be able to perceive it with your normal eyes that it was happening. That's how fast it would flash across the street. And all of a sudden you'd be like, I think I want to go get a cup of Coca-Cola from the concession stand before this movie starts, right? So these subliminal messages, they know that the mind goes into these brainwave states, and they know how to slip in these subliminals, and also how to do really, really strong branding with the way that they do the marketing and the commercials and everything else, so that automatically, just randomly, your body says, or your mind says, hey, oh yeah, you need this, when you really don't need it.
Absolutely.
It's some programming code. It used to be that we would talk, we'd be thinking about things, and then all of a sudden it would show up on the phone or the computer, right? So verbally we would talk, and we'd be like, these phones and these computers must be hearing us, right? But more recently, it's been you thinking about something, and all of a sudden it shows up, and it's like, man, are they tapping into our consciousness? This AI technology, these algorithms have become so sophisticated that it can predict. I don't think it's really reading our minds, but I think it's capable now to actually predict what we may be thinking about next through a predictive modeling software system that it has built into it. So it's pretty interesting how that can actually influence the way you go, because it's going to influence your spending habits. What kind of experiences have you had with it?
Oh man, I mean, this is well, I'm a little impulsive, so my spending habits aren't the greatest, but no, but I would even go deeper into what you were saying earlier from subliminal messages is is everything is programming us at all times. I mean, our brain is taking in everything, 100% of what we're seeing, feeling, hearing at all times without us even consciously taking it all in. So, I mean, even by way of horror movies, mainstream media, I mean, we're continually getting programmed by these bigger corporations that are controlling these outlets, right? So it's coming into us, and now through social media and through, you know, all this internet stuff, I mean, they have all of our data. What do we do all day? We make reels, right? We talk about the things that we like to do. So now they have created and collected all of this data. So now, yes, they are predicting exactly our next move. So like you said, I mean, it's more of it's more of a prediction rather than like reading our minds. But we're so predictive because, I mean, generalized civilization, we really behave the same way.
We're so predictable. I mean, Elizabeth will tell you, if I have the choice, I can eat the same thing for breakfast virtually almost every single day of the week and not be bored with it. Right? I'm a very predictable person when it comes to breakfast. If she wants to know what's going to make me happy for a breakfast, it's very simple for her to know exactly what to cook me every single day. And
we want to know what it is
every single day, you know.
Throughout our lives, our brains have these neural connections. And after you get so habitual with an act, that neural connection is so tightly wound, right? So now to break that habit, it's creating a whole another neural pathway. So it's really, really great for your brain to do these things, actually. If you brush your teeth with your right hand, brush your teeth with your left hand. You're creating new neural connections within your mind that's going to make you smarter, more conscious, more aware. I mean, these things are always, the brain likes that stuff. I mean, it doesn't actually like it because it likes patterns, right? But once you can kind of break patterns and create new ones, it's like now your brain is automatically growing and moving in different ways. I mean, we're plastic. Our brains are plastic, malleable. We can literally change our way of things just by awareness, just by changing our habits, right hand, left hand, right? Walking backwards. I mean, sometimes on the treadmill at the gym, you should walk backwards. That's training new muscles. That's creating new neural pathways in your mind. I mean, it's just these little things, these tiny little micro changes can create macro outcomes in your life.
Dr. Amen put me on a plan like this to help me. When I went to go to Dr. Amen, he's the #1 psychiatrist in the world. And basically he was, I had a brain injury from a car accident when I was in my early 20s. And he helped me fix my damaged part of my brain through the same exact activity. He was talking about, you know, table tennis. What he's talking about really was using the left and right hemispheres of the brain and forcing them to be used. So I switched it up and I started doing all kinds of stuff. Left hand, right hand bowling, left hand, right hand jump shooting in the basketball court, you know, drinking from the left hand or drinking from the right hand, doing different hand exercises, you know, rubbing your stomach and patting your head and doing it in reverse and everything else. It's creating new neural pathways, which actually brought more blood flow to the region of my brain that was actually damaged from the car accident, from the impact, and brought blood flow and literally diminished the damage. And that area, when you look at both SPECT scans, which are actually on his TV show, Scan My Brain, before there was huge silver dollar sized dimples in my brain, which a year later, gone. Well, Elizabeth has done a lot of actual modalities. And so if you want to talk about some of those, and then I'll talk about brain-heart coherence techniques.
Yeah. So I actually wrote a book all about this. So it's so lovely that we're even talking about this because, you know, the subconscious programming that I was actually born with and experienced throughout my, you know, pregnancy, when I was in the womb all the way up to 7. I mean, it wasn't the greatest and I had to kind of figure out why. So I did a ton of deep digging and I had to realize where my triggers were, where the roots were. And, you know, I really brought myself out of this traumatic energy that I was carrying throughout my younger years by reprogramming my subconscious mind using different technologies and different modalities. And I actually wrote a book called The Recipe to Elevated Consciousness, which talks about over 40 ways to reprogram your subconscious mind. So I'm going to talk about a couple of my favorites, which is one of my favorites to reprogram the subconscious is the flotation therapy. Right? Sensory deprivation. So our brains never get a chance to really shut off. Even when we're taking a nap, there's still light pollution. There's still noises, cars driving. There's still stimulus happening. So our brains really never get a chance to shut all the way down. So what sensory deprivation does, flotation therapy, is basically you submerge your body into a foot of water that you have over 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt dissolved into. So your body is actually less dense than that liquid. So you float buoyantly on top of this water, which is skin temperature. You go into this little tub or, this pod, and there's no light, there's no sound, and your body and brain can just literally relax, right? And so your brain waves will actually go into the theta state where you can actually dig into your subconscious mind and start reprogramming things consciously. So what I was doing is I was doing flotation therapy probably about twice a week for a very long time. And I was getting visions. I was doing regression work without even wanting or needing to. Like, I would literally just go back into these visions of things that my body would tell me, because now my brain has a chance to really shut off and relax. Mm-hmm. So I was able to kind of tailor the way that I wanted to react to certain things. I was able to emotionally reprogram some of the things that had happened to me, so they weren't so heightened within my body during, triggers. So that's a very, very good way to reprogram your subconscious mind. My other favorite thing to do is, as soon as you wake up, you write down 5 things that you're grateful for. You don't even open your eyes before you run through those 5 things in your mind, right? As soon as you run through the 5 things in your mind, open your eyes, go straight to the pen and paper, write it down, because that actual movement of your hands is different. The pen to paper, that really seals the deal for you, right?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's really a way to start your morning and your life off with gratitude. And that puts you in a whole different energy, right? And it'll carry you throughout the day. And it's also taking some of those automatic thoughts that are negative and reprogramming them. So do that as soon as you wake up, and then do the same thing right before you go to sleep. You write down 5 things you're grateful for, or 5 things that happened to you during the day that was lovely and amazing. And then you put the pen down, lay in the bed, close your eyes, and then think of those same 5 things, and just really, really, really program your mind to be in a high vibration state, a state of gratitude right when you wake, right before you go to sleep. This really helps reprogram those negative thought patterns, aka subconscious mind. There is one more that I do want to mention because it's so powerful, and it's called EFT. So emotional freedom technique is something that I've used multiple times throughout my life, especially when I was a chef, right? I had a whole nother life. I was a chef in the kitchen, and it's a very, very high stress environment. So I would get very anxious and overwhelmed sometimes. So sometimes I would have to excuse myself, bring myself back down. And the best way to do that was tapping. And basically that's tapping on different meridians on your body. And it's different meridians that kind of open up your mind to be able to insert programming and also reprogram emotionally things that have happened to you in your life, traumatic events. So I've used it for both. So when I would use it for, high stress environments, I would just go to the bathroom, tap, say, I feel my body getting really, really stressed out right now. You basically repeat to yourself out loud what the issue is. And then you say your name. My name is Elisabeth Hoekstra, and I still love and appreciate myself fully. And you're repeating these affirmations basically while tapping on these different energy points. And so that's really targeting your subconscious mind to now be able to pick that up. Your subconscious picks that up and puts it into, okay, now this is the way it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So different traumatic events, I can now look at different traumatic events I've had in my life because I've done EFT on them, and they're not so, I don't react as strongly as I did before because I reprogrammed my emotional response to that specific event. Mm-hmm. And this actually works physically, mentally. I mean, it works on all levels. So you can do it really about anything. Yeah. If you get in a fight with your significant other, you guys realize you need a little break for a second to part so you can both calm down. EFT is great to do that in that moment because now you'll be calm and appreciative almost because you're more present at that moment to come back and talk to your partner again after doing the exercise. So really, it can be done for anything. It's great.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. Those are 3 super powerful and effective. And I was just about to say EFT, but we're definitely on the same wavelength. It's just just the way it is. Billy, the icing on the cake. What would you like to add to this beautiful?
I would tell people, to start doing brain-heart coherence techniques. And so this really allows yourself to get back in alignment, because the brain and heart are directly connected. There's actually more neurons in the gut as well that connect to the brain. So it's really your brain, heart, and your gut. But to get back in brain heart coherence, and what it really takes is a couple of different breathing techniques. One is where you're breathing and you're focusing on your heart center. So you have a situation that's stressing you out, you're in fight or flight, or you're frozen, or whatever it is, you're stressed out. You go into a quiet place, whether it's your car, a closet, a room that you can close a door somewhere, and you start taking in deep breaths and exhaling deep breaths. We're talking about 5 to 8 seconds inhaling, really pushing from the diaphragm, right? Not just shallow breathing.
Right.
A lot of people shallow breathe. It's not actually good. Breathing from the diaphragm, 8 seconds, 5 to 8 seconds in and 5 to 8 seconds out. Doing that literally for about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, it will literally get you back in brain heart coherence. It will resynchronize your body. Focusing on the heart center the entire time, focusing on the heart center and focusing on positivity, it will reverse the negativity. It will drop the cortisol levels. It will get your body back in homeostasis and calm you all the way back down again. That's a really important thing to do, is that technique. And then another technique, which is incredible, is also an affirmation technique where you can actually write down 9 affirmations about yourself, 9 affirmations, and then you're going to repeat them out loud 3 times a day. You're going to speak them out loud 3 times a day, and you're going to do that for 6 days in a row. And you'll
9.
find that it will begin to reprogram. Now, what's interesting about this technique, which has been done in actual laboratories, scientific laboratories have studied this technique, and they saw that it started the process of reprogramming your own DNA. And if you look at the numbers there, 3, 6, 9.
Yeah.
What did Nikola Tesla say about 3, 6, and 9? If you can understand that, you'll understand, so to speak, the fabric of the universe and how the universe. Yeah. 3, 6, and 9 is just a magical combination.
Oh,
and when you speak them out loud, because when you're speaking out loud, you're creating a cymatic frequency. Cymatics, which are resonating and vibrating, because that's what speaking really is, creating a resonance frequency. And that resonance frequency is being absorbed by the water in your body. Human beings are 70% water. The water is picking up on that resonant frequency that's also backed by conscious thought. So it's the conscious thought is riding on the frequency and being absorbed back into the body on a resonance level into water. And now your body and your cells are resonating at a specific frequency based on the conscious thought and those affirmations, the way that you spoke them. And now you do that, for 6 weeks, 6 days, and that's the beginning process, but you're going to repeat it over and over again. And by the 4th week, your DNA is completely reprogrammed according to actual mainstream science. Pretty interesting.
You and I have talked
Let
about
me just add something really fast to what you said, because there's actually a tool, a technology. We were talking about brain heart coherence. It's called Heart Math. And I actually have it. I wrote about it in my book. It's a little device that you can clip onto your earlobe and then clip onto your body, and you connect it to your phone. And basically you're breathing through your heart center, just like you were saying, but you can actually see it on your phone if you're in coherence or if you're out of coherence. So it's like a practice. You can literally sit there and watch yourself going into brain heart coherence, which is very powerful.
So in talking about light as being conscious, you mentioned, it is particularly in the double slit experiment, it's famously known that it is the individual in the act of observation that's collapsing it into a particle. So absent the individual, is the light still conscious?
Absent the individual, I believe that the light is conscious. Light, these electromagnetic waves of light, they move and flow throughout the entire universe, and they're probably even multidimensional as well. And they move and flow, and the purpose behind it is still obviously cloudy or partly unknown. But if you look at as above, so below, and so on the larger scale of the universe, it's conscious. The entire universe is conscious. There's enough connecting energies to make a conscious universe. And so if you take it down to the below, that would be us. If we are basically a mirror of the universe, which I truly do believe, look at us with our consciousness, look at us with our capability of thinking, and how each one of those thoughts that we create in our mind, even the people watching this video right now, every thought that they're thinking while they're watching this video is creating a wave of light that leaves their brain, that leaves their skull and goes out into space-time permanently. So just like, back in the 1930s and 40s, I Love Lucy, radio frequency and TV frequencies are still going out throughout space and traveling throughout the galaxy. And someday somebody may decode them in some other faraway planet and watch I Love Lucy. They don't have to inject you. They don't have to open your skull. The light waves penetrate your skull and leave out of your head and enter space-time. So every thought that you've ever thought has gone out into space-time permanently. Every idea, every intention is gone out into space-time. So this idea that the ancients had of this Akashic record that stores all the information of everything you've ever done, I think it's true, as well as the Book of Life. Thoth talks about it in the Emerald Tablets. It also made its way more into the modern day Bible. I think that the Book of Life is absolutely 100% accurate and true, that there is this storage capacity within this universe that stores all of the light wave information that's ever existed, including all of yours since you were conceived.
This is interesting. So I think what you're saying, Billy, is that we are not independent of the light or it of us. It's really us that is producing the light. And well, of course, we're electrical beings. We know that. So I'm trying to get a visual here. Could there be light that is independent of us? Well, I guess the question is anything independent of us? But what you're talking about is light being just the thought, our own thought process and feelings and emotions, etc., go into a light wave and are transmitted into infinity, essentially.
Exactly. And because we're conscious, then those light waves are also conscious.
Absolutely.
So we're sending out conscious energy into the universe on a consistent basis. And that conscious energy has a direct effect on the ether of space-time itself. All human beings exist both as solid matter and also as a wave of light. We're both. We're solid and we're light waves. So all human beings are light beings. We're all made of light. If you take and analyze, the atoms inside of a human body that make up a human body and the human avatar, and you take them and put them in a particle smasher, you're going to find out that every particle inside a human body is nothing but of light.
Right.
Light that's been collapsed into digital matter that we can utilize to maneuver through this third dimension, through this hologram. But all the light that makes up the atoms in our body is also conscious, which means that rocks are conscious, blades of grass are conscious, the planet is conscious.
Now we have to assume that at some level these orbs, seen almost always as light, are intelligent and are conscious. Let's dig into that a bit. What are we seeing there now? Are they being emanated from us? Are they coming from elsewhere? What's happening with orbs as you understand them?
Orbs are really, really interesting. We can't specifically say exactly what an orb is because obviously we aren't orbs, but we can hypothesize on what they might be. And because the universe has so many dimensions, and according to even the most famous theoretical physicist, at least 11 dimensions would make up this universe. Otherwise, the dimensions would collapse. The universe would collapse in and on itself. So we have at least 11 dimensions. But I think that these orbs could be multidimensional beings. Even though we ourselves are also multidimensional consciously, I believe that these orbs may have the capability of transmitting or transferring themselves down dimensions, down densities. And so how would that work? It's just based off your ability to phase shift your subatomic frequency. So every dimension vibrates at a specific frequency, and it's all about frequencies and sound. So if you knew the frequency of a higher dimension and you can match that higher dimension, or if you knew the frequency of a parallel universe and you can match the frequency of that parallel universe, it's possible that you can literally walk right into another universe, walk into a higher dimension or a lower dimension based off of frequency wave technology if you have the capability. Sometimes people say they see these things appear and then they seem to just vanish. They could have phase shifted into our reality for a very small period of time and then went back to whatever dimension or realm that they originated from based off of frequency technology. And I think that once we develop frequency technology, if they're not already doing it, we would definitely be able to do the same thing. I saw an article recently that stated something roughly about scientists now being able to tap into parallel universes. So if that's the case, and I haven't had a chance to read that article yet, then it's going to have to do with frequency, period. There's no other way to get around it. Frequency will allow you to do that. And frequency means you're altering the atomic structure, the frequency, because every atom vibrates at a specific frequency.
Right.
And if you can match it, then you can enter it. Just like the the mouse that you have over there, that mouse will stop your hand from going through it because the electrons orbiting the atoms in the mouse repel the electrons orbiting the atoms in your hand. But if you were to phase shift the atomic frequency of your hand to the same frequency of the mouse, your hand would pass right through the mouse. So it's all about understanding frequencies and how to get the right oscillations.
I have a couple of questions. Going back to this whole spectrum of light I find fascinating, and the fact that us as very, at least in this realm, dense human beings, why do we occupy such a minute, or are only able to take in such a minute part of that spectrum of light? Why is that, you think?
Well, I think there's so much activity happening around us, and the way that our consciousness and our brains are set up, it would be overload. I think it would be an overload on our senses. It's just so much going on. I mean, if you can see in all the different light spectrums, you'd see things happening everywhere you look. There'd be something going on. I mean, it could even be entities operating and living right around us, and we probably can't even see them. So we've been given this reduced capability. And I think this is why, Nikola Tesla made the famous quote, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries since its existence." So he knew, that there's this unseen world that's out there that exists right around us, and we're not tapping into it. We're not researching it. We're not looking into it. We're only following these two eyes, which are, they have a veil over them, these two eyes. The third eye is the real eye. The third eye should be called the first eye, because these two should be called, the one and the two, second and third eye, because the third eye should be the first eye. That's your spiritual antenna. But Nikola Tesla knew that there's something beyond the veil of these two eyes that we're missing out on, and it's all around us. And I do think that there's a lot to be experimented with it. I think there are a lot of experiments already going on. A friend of mine bought a multi-spectrum camera from Amazon called a Ghost Finder. And when he goes and walks his dog in the morning, he literally just holds the camcorder up at the sky, walks his dog. He comes home. Later on, he downloads the video and he analyzes it. And you can see all kind of weird stuff going on in the video. That's why it's called a Ghost Finder. You can buy them right on Amazon.
Really?
And there's a lot going on in the sky nonstop
that
we just can't see.
Yeah, let's talk about in terms of our ability to see. And you're talking about the third eye as being the first eye. But what's really intrigued me of late, Billy, is and you've referred to it as the temples, really, the peripheral vision. So let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on that and peripheral vision and how we might utilize that to see more of the spectrum?
Yeah. Peripheral vision is a very powerful thing that's really taken for granted. I've tapped into peripheral vision for a very long time, being a basketball player, playing sports my whole life, predominantly basketball and soccer. And a lot of peripheral vision, how good your peripheral vision is, can judge how good you can be as a basketball player. So I would work on my peripheral vision, and a lot of the greatest point guards in the history of the NBA at the highest level, you'll find out that they have superb peripheral vision. That's how they make these quote unquote no-look passes. They can see where they're passing the ball. We just can't tell that they can see, but they have the peripheral vision to see that. And some of the greatest basketball players of all time, like Michael Jordan, have some of the greatest peripheral vision, and that has allowed them to excel and get to a higher level in that particular sport. So peripheral vision is really, really an amazing thing. And if you're already open to seeing auras and energy fields and things like that, it may be a very good way to actually tap into analyzing or seeing different fields of energy by using peripheral, because sometimes coming directly head on to the retinas, it's more illusory. You really can't detect it. But sometimes from the peripherals, you can pick up the ambiance of those fields, of those energy fields sometimes. And I think that peripheral vision is a very, very strong and powerful tool that a lot of people have just really taken for granted. I use it all the time, and I think it's a really great thing.
Conscious light waves. What else can you tell us about? How about our interacting with them more consciously? Light. Knowing, with the understanding that there's a conscious aspect to the light, how can we become more involved in talking to the light if we're light ourselves? If that makes sense.
Right. And I wrote in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he's always talking about a human being seeking the light and striving towards the light. and using the light, accessing. And he's just, I mean, he probably says the word light 50,000 times in the tablets. And so there's a powerful meaning behind this light word. He's obviously overemphasizing the importance of the light and seeking the light. And I think to incorporate into your meditation, the cosmic meditation that I particularly do, allows myself to be filled with cosmic light and energy that comes in from space-time. And the energy coming in from space-time are waves of light, electromagnetic waves of energy, cosmic energy that's coming in as light waves. And the reason why I do this is because I think that the universe can fill you with information and give you a lot of information. It's almost like getting a download, but being open enough to just wait for the download to occur instead of just randomly getting it on the fly. Both ways work, but the universe, the conscious light that's in the universe, they're all oscillating at different frequencies. So once you get into a cosmic frequency in a meditation, if you match the frequency of information already contained in space-time, you can then download it right into your body. It's all about matching frequencies, quantum entangling with information. A lot of the times people get what they think are their own original ideas or their own invention ideas or whatever, but a lot of the times it's not. It's that they've literally matched information in space-time and they've downloaded it, and their physiology has been good enough to discern the download and then put it into their thoughts, and now they're acting on it. So it's really, really amazing because this happens a lot more than often than people think.
Now we're talking about the field, which I think is one of the most exciting subjects ever. That all exists within that field. I could not concur with you more. And it has been said throughout the ages, in fact, that, or at least the question has been asked, is there such a thing as original thought?
Yeah. There's a delay in the way that our third dimensional avatar bodies process information that comes in from multiple dimensions before it gets into our consciousness. So scientists were doing this random experiment, trying to figure out how to map human brain emotions to a computer. And so they would take individuals, and they would put them in a dark room, put on a screen, different images on slides, and they had this electrode cap on their head, and they connected to a computer. And this happened totally by accident. So they would put up a picture of a bed of roses and see what the brain thought of that and transmit it to a computer and map that. They'd put up a picture of a woman kissing a child. Then they put up an image of somebody getting murdered, some car on fire, building burning, all these different images that trigger different emotional responses. And then they were spacing the images out 10 seconds apart. What happened in every case study, that the human brain started transmitting to the computer what the next image was going to be before it even showed up on the screen, up to 7 seconds in advance. Up to 7 seconds in advance was the highest recording. So we are potentially living in a up to 7-second delay of information as it's fed down through multiple dimensions, gets deciphered by our cognitive functions, discerned, and then acted on. So there's up to a 7-second delay in space-time. It's almost like if you're watching cable TV and on another TV you have it connected to satellite TV. The satellite TV is going to be delayed and the cable is going to be more real-time. Right. So it's that's what's happening. So information is coming to us, what we would perceive as from the future, but that's really real time. And what we're getting here is a delay. We're on a delayed time. And then there's even a further delay beyond that, because everything you look at, you don't see it as it is, you see it as it was, because it takes time for the photon to bounce off of whatever you're looking at, bounce back to your retina, go to the back of the brain, get deciphered, and convert it into a hologram as to what you believe it's out there. And that takes time, a few milliseconds. So all of a sudden, when you're looking at somebody, you're looking at them as they were, because by the time you actually see them, they've already moved.
What are the real implications of that? How might we change our thinking when we realize that all information is delayed?
Well, that's a great question. You see, so how can we make our lives better? Well, this is why you have to tap into meditation. You have to tap into researching and understanding ancient information, because the combination of those two things will allow you to have better discernment. I think that, meditation, operating in empathy and unconditional love, researching ancient mysticism and ancient esoteric wisdom will take you to a higher level consciously that will allow you to discern information faster than the average person, so that as it's coming into you, what people seem to be maybe more clairvoyant than others, they're picking up more of the information that's coming from the real time and discerning it faster than the other person who's on a much larger delay.
That's
So it seems
interesting.
like they're always ahead of the game.
So, and interestingly, a lot of these experiences tend to be more common with children, less focused,
Yes,
less rooted in the physical, dense world because they haven't been here as long. What are your thoughts on
that's
that?
right. Yeah, they have less distractions, so they're not worrying about what's on CNN and who to vote for next. And their part's still ethereal and still, solid, third degree, third dimensional. So they're bouncing back and forth. They're still able to see things that we can't see. They're smiling in the space because they see things there. And so they're more prone and a lot easier to tap into that realm than a grown adult, because when a child is young, or when a person is young, I should say, it's like a tree. It's like a young sapling. You can bend the limbs, but once that tree gets deep rooted and grows older, you try to bend the limbs, you can snap them.
Right.
So we kind of get set in our ways and we get really stiff, but we're a lot more malleable when we're younger.
Absolutely. Let's finish up by talking about the sun. I want to stay on the light. Now, we can't have a conversation about light without talking about the sun. And because of all of your work with Compendium of the Emerald Tablets and the Wisdom of Thoth, obviously it's synonymous with the sun. So what did Thoth say about the sun as in terms of being a conscious entity?
Well, the way that he references the universe is as if everything in the universe is conscious, and the sun just happens to be another conscious entity. Not only Thoth talks about that in the Emerald Tablets, but even if you look in the Enuma Elish and the Seven Tablets of Creation, or the Atrahasis epic, you discover that the ancients believed that the planets were also conscious and can communicate with each other as well. So these are conscious planets and suns that actually can talk with each other and have communications and even go to war and battle and things like that, which is really interesting. So the sun itself, which obviously is the majority of the giver of life on a consistent stream of energy waves to the planet through photonic energy, that we utilize and we convert into different types of energy. Then most plant life, of course, without the sun and everything else, for photosynthesis allows us to be able to be alive on this planet. So it's being the sun, being the giver of life, it's no wonder why a lot of the ancient religious texts took it and deified the sun and turned it into a being that had the capability of dying and then coming back to life and all these other kind of things that you see in a lot of the religious texts. But when you look in the in these ancient texts, you discover that the sun is worshipped because it's not because they just wanted something to worship. It's because they understood that life came from the sun, and that we can consciously mimic the sun in an esoteric way, where we literally have the capability of projecting light and being the light and being the beam of light. This is what Thoth talks about consistently. No matter where you go, you should be an energetic being. You should be the light. Your light should be as bright as the sun. And he calls himself the son of Atlantis many, many times in the Emerald Tablets. Another thing that's really interesting is, kind of parallel to that, Yeshua, also known as Jesus in the modern day Bible, he calls himself the Son a lot. And even then, not the Son of God, the Son of Man. This is the reference that Thoth makes in the Emerald Tablets, as well as Yeshua in the modern day Bible, the Son of Man. That's very interesting. Is it the S-U-N of man? I think it is.
I agree. In the meantime, I want to thank you once again, Billy. And as always, I want to thank you for tuning in, as always, to Higher Journeys. We'll talk to you soon.